What's up, everybody? I'm Fernando Mastrangelo, and welcome back to Design Discord. Today, I have a really special guest. I'm sitting with Jill Singer from Sight Unseen, who has been around for 17 years now. Sight Unseen helped really define the 2010s into today as well, but its pivotal time period when it started in 2009 kind of really helped define an era of American design. They started the design hot list. They did Offsite, which was a fair for many years. They have really touched on all of the major players in the American design scene and beyond. So she's an amazing guest. She's a wealth of knowledge, and it was a really fun, interesting conversation. So let's jump right in. Jill Singer.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. We've known each other a long time, and I feel like we're veterans of this design industry. So I'm excited to talk to you because you guys, Sight Unseen was a big part of my career in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we're going to totally talk about that, but I want to take people a little bit back to the beginning. And I know you guys have talked a lot about, ID and what went on there and all that. But for people who don't know that story, maybe let's just give them a brief of how you and Monica kind of came to it and through that kind of collapse of that magazine, which was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Monica and I worked together at this magazine ID, which originally stood for industrial design, but eventually came to stand for like the International Design Magazine or something like that. And it was a 54-year-old property. We worked there from 2005 to 2009, and we left in April of 2009, and the magazine folded in December of 2009. But it was a really interesting time to be there because design in America was like undergoing like a very weird transition period, I feel like, where digital design was just coming to the fore. Sustainability was just coming to the fore. And
when you say digital design, you mean like
just like digital technologies being used in a way that they weren't before. So Monica and I met there. We worked there together for 4 years, and we got fired. For reasons that are like way too long to get into here. But
totally.
Considering the magazine folded 6 months later, I think you can understand. And we had kind of talked about what we would do after ID. And our favorite thing to do at the magazine was go into the studios of people who are actually making things. And we thought, okay, well, what if that was the entire concept of the website, where we showed people how products were made, who was making them, and just kind of like lifted the curtain on this whole process in a way that people weren't doing at the time.
Right. Was that because, mostly because of print, you can't really do that as much? Or what was it that...
I think part of it was, because you can do anything you want in print.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it was a little bit of just a reaction to what was happening in the world. Like that was sort of like around the time of the slow food movement, and things like had started cropping up here and there. Like Apartamento started around the same time we did. The Selby was like a precursor to, where like sort of just like showing things like as they are. And just like this interest in like really understanding where the things you bring into your life came from. Right. But yeah, it wasn't as much of a thing. And we were certainly the first online magazine to do that.
You were?
Yeah,
I think cool. So. And so that was 2009. Essentially, I feel like there's a few eras for Sight Unseen. That the first 5 years you guys talk about how those were kind of like financially they were kind of testy. You started the thing with Kickstarter.
Yes.
Kind of like bootstrapped it. So I'm kind of interested in those first 5 years is like, do you start to see the site, the influence that it started to have? Like when did that kind of start to come in? Because I come into the scene in 2014, I think something kind of shifts by then. But those first five, when did you guys start to, and because something had to make it worth kind of keep going, to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, simultaneously to starting Sight Unseen as a magazine, we started showing the work of American designers primarily. 6 months later, maybe, we started in design New York Design Week 2010, we founded a satellite fair to ICFF called the NoHo Design District. And we had sort of like what would become the template for this fair we would do, where we would have like a couple of primary hubs where we were showing either like individual exhibitions, group exhibitions, pop-up stores, or Monica and I like curating a group of emerging designers. And then we were partnering with businesses in the neighborhood as well. So we had a primary location that first year in this like abandoned lumber building in NoHo that we got by just like walking by. And there was a phone number and I was like, let's call that and see what happens. And it sort of just spiraled from there. And we did these crazy things at this fair, like when Omar Arbel was launching Bocce, we like lifted this huge Bocce chandelier into the air on a crane in like the parking lot of a gas station that was in NoHo. We helped launch Roland Hill when it was starting out. We showed Lindsay Adelman like in 2011. So we were really like simultaneously like covering the world of design and then also creating what is now called content for the design world and platforming these emerging designers who were sort of like this new generation of talent that was working in a more like studio-based atelier model that hadn't existed as much before. So I think that between those two things, it got to be a very like popular thing, and we liked doing it. Like we did it because we enjoyed what we were doing. We had a million friends in the design world, so it was this very like ragtag but fun experiment. And then right around the time we switched the name of the show from NoHo Design District to Sight Unseen Offsite is when we got like much bigger on Instagram. And that I think kicked Sight Unseen up to like another level.
So you guys were on Instagram early on, of course.
Yeah, we were there, I think from, I want to say, that's a good question, actually. I was there from 2011, personally. We must have gotten on at Sight Unseen at the same time. Yeah. And
so there's this thing that people talk about, there's like this movement that feels like starts in the 2010s. And I feel like you guys are kind of pivotal in that kind of movement. Did you see that movement kind of starting to happen? And like Sight Unseen being pivotal in kind of forming that 2010s kind of aesthetic and some of the things, because essentially it comes down to you and Monica's eyes.
Yes.
And your taste.
Yeah.
To then feel like you're kind of forming this language or this like time period, this era. Did you guys sense that and feel that? Or were you guys just kind of like doing your thing and like being like, yo, I like this, I like that, let's publish this? Is it that kind of fast paced and kind of, like you're saying, ragtag?
I mean, okay, I say ragtag, but like, like there was intention behind it. And even though neither Monica nor I studied design, but both of us had been writing about design for quite a while at that time. And then it was like very much like a self-education process. So we were aware of like what was happening in response to design history. We were aware of like this sort of swell of a new aesthetic that was coming, and we did things to capitalize on it. We, in 2012, we did a little pop-up shop at Creatures of Comfort called the Shape Shop, which was just like all triangles and hexagons and all that stuff that was like really popular in the early 2010s. That sort of is what led into this like neo-Memphis movement. So we were definitely like aware of it and understanding that it was our role to sort of like crystallize this movement into something people understood by doing things like that people could like shop and go, Do you get... when people say there's a sight unseen aesthetic, is that annoying to you, or do you think like no? It's so, first of all, it's incredibly flattering. Okay, good, because I was like, I know that aesthetic. I was part of that aesthetic. I feel like early on I was like, so I always wondered if there's like tension around that idea or not. I mean, the only tension that exists is that for a while we really got pigeonholed with this certain like squiggly, playful aesthetic that we eventually outgrew as our tastes, as our like world sort of like expanded and our tastes grew, and we started sort of like favoring a more sophisticated type of design. And so people would say, that's so sight unseen. There was even a hashtag at one point, hashtag so sight unseen, that we didn't invent.
No, someone else, yeah.
And, or maybe like one person used it and we're like, that's a good one. So that would be the only sort of like pushback where we were like, okay, well, that was so sight unseen, but like maybe it's not anymore. And now I would be really interested if people think there's a sight unseen aesthetic, because it's changed so much.
It's changed. I don't think, early on I feel like it was a little more defined. And maybe it was because of the type of work that was just being made in that time and the influences that were, but it was like, funky geometries.
Funky geometries. This is a good way to put
it. Very, colorful work. And then there's like, I think it also touched on the rise of Instagram and the rise of sight unseen kind of at the same time, because design really had this kind of new platform to get visibility to like millions of people all of a sudden. I think they kind of grew up together in a weird way from the way I kind of perceived it at the time.
Yeah.
So in 2013, you guys established the Hot List.
Yes.
Which, is, if you look back now at the names, and I'm assuming that everyone was a young designer at that point. They hadn't had fully established studio, not the way they do today.
Yeah.
And I looked at that list back all the way to 2000. It's an incredible list of
It's a great
people.
archive of American design.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And the people that have there's some names are superstars and some names are have great studios.
Some people we never heard from again.
Exactly. Then there's people that just stopped making furniture altogether. Yeah. But at that time, were you guys intentional about starting the Hot List and saying, okay, we're just gonna think about who we think is cool and what's really hot out there, and what was the kind of idea with developing the Hot List?
As far as I remember, our idea for it was a lot of European companies and were coming to us saying, we want to work with American designers. Who would you recommend? And so I think we were like, well, why don't we just codify this into kind of like an award? And simultaneously, we were like, oh, well, these companies are always tapping the same people, which is still, frankly, a problem today. And the people they were tapping were primarily male. And so we were like, okay, well, let's create this list that not only recognizes the best of American talent and acts as this ongoing resource for people to use when they're looking for people to collaborate with, but also promotes people in a very equal way.
How were you finding them? Was it through the editorial stuff where it was?
Yeah, it was primarily people that we had covered editorially, which always came in through a variety of ways, like Instagram submissions, word of mouth, and then us just sort of pounding the pavement at design fairs. And then us kind of keeping, and it still works this way, where we just keep an ongoing list throughout the year of people that have kind of caught our eye. And then we have a conversation before it happens about is this person ready? Is there enough there for us to kind of put the full weight of sight unseen behind it? Do we need to wait for another collection? We reach out to them sometimes saying,
what do you got?
Hey, are you doing anything at Design Miami this year? Can we get a sneak peek? That kind of thing.
It's interesting that you say that about the weight of sight unseen behind them early on. Did you notice right away that people that got on the list that it could have it could change the trajectory of their career or get them eyeballs?
Yeah. When I say the weight of sight unseen, maybe that feels more relevant now, but at the same time, we showed Misha Khan at NoHo Design District in, I want to say 2010. He was just graduating RISD.
Right.
And I'm not it's not like we're responsible for his career, but we were just one of the first people to show his work and to expose him to a wider audience. And yeah, it really became a thing that people, when I would go to design fairs, students are still, I'm a little bit of, Monica and I are both a little bit of celebrities to them, I think, which is really nice. Yeah. And People do tell us all the time that being on Sight Unseen changed their business in a really tangible way that maybe getting another piece of press didn't necessarily. Like people found them, said to them, I found you through Sight Unseen, and came to do business with them.
So it does make you pause and think, okay, like, are they, like you have the conversation about like, are they kind of ready for this? Yeah, that's cool.
And just like ready for like us to be like, this is a good designer. Because sometimes you're like, okay,
Right.
this piece is amazing, but like what's happening over here,
Sure. No, that makes sense. So it kind of, then this is kind of when you guys decided to do Offsite, No More NoHo in 2014. That's kind of when I get introduced to Sight Unseen. And I mean, I don't know if you know the story, but basically, I started with Amma, which which was but I had no idea what Sight Unseen was. Right? I had been coming from the art world. And so my business partner at the time was like, we got to do this. It's going to be big. But I had no idea what that show would do. And I don't know if it's special to me because it was my first show ever, but I want to hear like how you felt about that 2014 show, because it really felt like, first of all, a huge amount of people showed up.
Yeah.
The amount of press that it got was obscene.
Yeah.
And, I literally credit it with my entire career launch because 6 months later, I was working with Stella McCartney on her store in Palo Alto, and just was able to like get orders right away from that show. It was just so. One, what created that energy at that time, and how do you remember that fair that year and that?
Yeah. So I think that originally we decided to change the name really just so that we could get more credit, so that it wasn't like NoHo Design District almost sounds like it's put on by the city.
Yeah, it does.
Or like even when we did collaborate with like the Business Improvement District in NoHo, because we just did it the first year, being like, that'll still be fun. And then they were like, wait, why are you using our name?
Is that like, that was not cool?
It was not cool until we were like, okay, well, let's all like work together.
I'm sure
on
they
this.
would like that. Yeah.
Totally. So we just wanted our name to be front and center because we're like, well, we're doing all the work for this. So like, may as well call it Sight Unseen. And we had gotten an amazing space for that show.
Yeah.
It is now Italy.
Every time I walk by it, I see that corner where I was like, oh my God.
I'll be like, oh my God, this is where the ceramics pop-up was. The checkout counter.
Totally.
And we got it for free. So that enabled us to do like just like a show beyond our wildest dreams, really. And I think we had, I don't remember how many, because the biggest show we ever had was 2016, but we probably had at least 40 people showing. And then we had like little curated things like the ceramics pop up and a couple other little like shops. And again, like that was when we had like suddenly gone from like, I don't know, 10,000 Instagram subscribers to like 75,000. Like all of a sudden, I think Instagram had featured us in some way. And so it was sort of just like a combination of all those people working together to promote it. The fact that like Monica and I have always been good at PR because we are journalists. So we just talk to a journalist all the time and spend a lot of time with them. So it's like easy for us to sort of get the word out about it. And yeah, it was just like a really... We felt like we had the feeling that it was like leveling up. Like David Byrne came to that show, I remember. I mean, he had a personal connection to the show, but we were still so psyched that we were like, oh my God, there's a celebrity here. And yeah, the opening party, people were like sitting on the scaffolding, smoking and like lined up down the street. It was a real moment in design.
I actually remember when the line started and I was like, are all those people coming to this?
For a design show.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I always wonder why, that era is changed so much. So I'm always trying to like, think back of like, why did everything kind of coalesce so beautifully around that era of, and if it has to do with, New York and there was still possibility for young independents to like start studios, experiment with stuff, and now I think it's a bit harder for the younger generations, but.
I mean, so much of it was just like the circumstance of being like recession and post-recession.
Right.
Just like there were storefronts empty, there were entire buildings empty. And now people like hang on to those. They're like, yeah, it's not worth it for me to rent it to you for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that's, there are many factors that have come together that we don't do the show anymore, but that's a huge one, that we just don't have the real estate luck that we used to have.
Yeah. I've said this many times, that I was always sad that it stopped.
Yeah.
I just felt like, and I felt like that it's never been filled.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of shows that are, coming into the fray, Afternoon Light, Collectible. One, like, how do you feel about that? One that, like, was it a financial thing that didn't really make sense for the show to continue? Or what was it that, like, or was it just like a time thing where it's like really hard to...
Okay, so our last show was in 2018.
Yeah.
And then we took a break in 2019, just being like, we're burned out. We need some time to ourselves and to like experience New York Design Week, not as producers or curators. So that was really fun. And then we planned to bring it back in 2020. We were going to show at, I think, Skylight Studios.
Cool.
And we had a whole lineup. And then obviously that didn't happen. And it went online for that year. And then after COVID, we didn't have the real estate look. It was also just like we were getting tired of like the hustle, I think, like where it was so hard to find sponsors. It was so hard to find real estate. It would always come together in like late March. And then we'd be like, okay, we got to put together a show now. So it just became difficult. And we started just doing like these smaller, more curated shows that were like, made more sense because we had started selling the furniture at that point online, not like an online gallery. So we were almost like a pop-up gallery at that point. But yeah, I do still hear from people that it was their favorite show they've ever had. And they miss it and they want us to bring it back. And
they still want you to bring it back?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see. I know you guys are in a different place now, but is it something?
I might have a secret plan brewing for an anniversary year, but we'll see.
Which would be, what do you consider the anniversary?
It would be 2029.
2029.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the new crop of fairs. Like, how do you feel about fairs like Collectible, fairs like Afternoon Light? Like, how, when you walk through them, what are your thoughts? No, I know. Be honest. Is this the part I'm gonna have to edit?
Yeah.
Well, because you're a thinker in this industry. I
know it's my job to think about fair culture.
I know.
I've really assigned myself that assignment.
Yeah. And I feel like you're an expert at it. So I just wanted to but whatever you're comfortable with.
So here's what I'll say.
Okay.
There's different reasons that people do a fair. A lot of them do it for press, but I think more often people want to do it for sales. I mean, why else would you want to spend all that money? So I don't know. I actually don't know how people are doing sales-wise. I haven't spoken to anyone about what happens after doing Wanted at ICFF, what happens after doing Afternoon Light, what happens after doing Collectible. I think that the thing that when people say they miss sight unseen offsite, it's a much tighter curation of somebody being this has to go with the rest of the fair. This has to be, we're not just selling a booth. We're doing a sliding scale for people we actually just really want in the show. And, part of that is that's Monica and I were not good business people in that way. We wanted to do things because we wanted to do them. And we did them at the expense of making a lot of money. And now I think that these fairs, if they're going to happen, they also need to make money because otherwise it's not a charity. No one's running a charity. But we were young and in this world and wanted to support our friends. And there were years where we made a lot of money. And there were years where we barely broke even. So I think the calculus has changed a lot when it comes to fairs. And doing them too.
The curation, which changes the kind of thesis that shows. Right.
Collectible to me feels more in spirit with Sight Unseen Offsite. The show that Hannah Martin curated last year was really great. Like one of my favorite shows of the last year.
We reviewed that, but yeah, it was
great. So I like to see those kinds of things continuing.
Yeah, because that felt like a show within a show. Yeah, it was nicely done. Yeah, and she had some new stars in it too.
Yeah.
Which you guys have probably covered.
Right. Well, like that's the reason I go to a fair is I want to find new people that I didn't know about. And I've found that increasingly hard to do worldwide, frankly. So that was a really great show where I just like looking at people on Instagram, following and writing about them. And
I remember when I was doing my In Good Company shows, I would always like back check to make sure that you guys hadn't already like found some of these people, because it is a tough thing to to like find talent that you guys haven't already discovered.
People beat us a lot now, I think.
Do they?
I think we used to be a little bit more on top of our game. But also just like the mission of Sight Unseen has changed a little bit. That's still at the core of everything we do, but it's become a lot more than that. And there's a different audience sometimes, and there's a different, like a wider range of people we're covering. And then the design world has changed a lot.
Say more about that.
Well, there's much more of a focus now on, there are two interesting things happening. Like the sort of idea of like this, what I was talking about before, like the maker has, and like the sort of like craft-based approach has gone sort of like through ups and downs throughout Sight Unseen's time. And I do feel like it's up right now, which is really nice. But well, it was funny. I was just in Copenhagen and I walked into a sort of like up and coming show that these two young designers had put together. And when they found out who I was, they said, "Oh, like Sight Unseen, you guys mostly cover collectible design, don't you?" And to me, that was almost like a depressing outcome that like, that's like all we're known for now. We're like, I want there to be more like that we're known for, because we have this wide range of, we are interested in industrial designers. We are interested in interior design. We are interested in collectible design, obviously, but I don't want it to be like the sole thing that people know us for. But at the same time, like that is primarily what's happening in the design realm, for better or for worse, where like people are primarily making really expensive items to sell to high-end interior designers or sell through a gallery. And that's what's happening.
So, and do you feel that that's perhaps because, being an independent, right? Like I was independent my entire career. And I feel there was a time that was possible. And because the ecosystem was there to support it, do you think because of the fracture in the ecosystem to support that, is that why it's changing, do you feel? Or
I just think everything is expensive now. Materials,
in terms of,
like materials are expensive. It's
so you only have a choice to make expensive stuff, essentially. Yeah.
I mean,
so what happens?
And then also just like there's a certain type of like company that doesn't exist anymore too. Like like people have talked about like AreaWare closing, which now it's starting up again under, I guess, a different umbrella. But just like people who want to make like sort of like smaller giftable items, that's, I think, harder to do at this point. People who license their designs to companies in Europe and here, I feel like that is also hard right now. I don't know. There are like systemic changes.
It's like a pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, right? I feel like the 2010s kind of end in like a high in a weird way. Like 2019 is kind of a high, and then all of a sudden, right, for the design industry in general, the economy, everything's kind of
right.
And then all of a sudden, 2020 happens and everything shifts.
Yeah.
And we're all dealing with like how to navigate this new design world. Although there was like a boom, but it was, you don't really know, like that boom didn't feel real or something like that. It was just like a temporary thing. And then now we're kind of dealing with the like residue of that boom and what, like the shifts and the fairs that went away and, the media, just design media has changed so much. I feel like there used to be so much writing about design. Surface Magazine, things that just are not there anymore. Like, are you feeling optimistic about where things are going with the design industry? Or are you feeling like an unknown?
I would say unknown.
Okay.
I had two, we just basically like completed what's called design season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I really had a terrible time in Milan.
I read that, yeah.
Notoriously
I wanted to talk to you
terrible.
about that. Yeah.
And I was like really depressed about like what I saw and what I didn't see. And then I went to Copenhagen and I had almost the exact opposite experience where I felt like so hopeful and that things really could be better. And like
What was the differences? I mean, talk a little bit about Milan, because you mentioned about how fashion brands, luxury brands are just like taking over.
Yeah. And like it's, I guess in some ways that's like an easy target. Like there's more problems than just that. But I felt like people have decided, like everyone has decided that they need to be there. And I don't necessarily think that that's true. And then as a result of that, it just becomes so much harder to find the shows that really speak to you. And that's my job. And like there was a whole huge curated show that I didn't even hear of. So like they didn't pitch me. A lot of people will say, oh, like we thought you would see it on Instagram or something like that. None of the designers that were in it had pitched sight unseen. It was bizarre. And I felt like it was really like all of our attention was taken up by a certain like kind of design presentation, including like the lashes, including like the luxury and fashion brands.
And you feel like that kind of maybe pushes out some of the creative, independent, fun, interesting new stuff. Yeah.
And because it's not like there was an element there, but if everyone is talking about like a certain kind of like a brand presentation or a fashion presentation, and then why are you even showing up to show your work? Like, what's the point? So that was interesting. And then when I went to Copenhagen.
Yeah, tell me about Copenhagen. I had my friend Julia Haney.
Yeah. Yes, I saw Julia at a dinner.
Which she loved it.
She also
feels the same way. She's like, I'm optimistic about things with that. Yeah.
It's like manageable. It's, I do fear that people are going to like hear us say how great Copenhagen is, and everyone's going to be like, okay, well, that's the place we have to be now. And then Copenhagen is going to get ruined too. But like right now, it's manageable. The city is so small that it's like easy to just like see a million things. And then I have a newsletter coming out in Sight Unseen tomorrow that talks about this idea of like, I don't know if Copenhagen has always been this way because this was my first year going, but I felt like what I called a matriarchal energy that I have never felt at a design fair before, where it felt like women were in charge of almost every single brand or curated presentation that I cared about. And that felt like a real turning point for me, personally as a journalist, and then, as a woman in design. And I do feel a very distinctly male energy from Milan. I mean, just from Italy in general. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it wasn't to the exclusion of men at all. Like there were men involved in every single, thing that I liked. But yeah.
So in other words, like a good female energy.
A good female energy.
Like in terms of curation as well, in terms of like, like I'm just curious. Like
it felt like a sort of, the idea that everywhere I turned, I was like, oh, well, who's the creative director of this brand that I thought was great? Okay, it's a woman who put together this amazing bed presentation in an abandoned parking garage. Oh, it was a woman. You know what I mean? Like it just like that was like the sort of like red thread through a lot of the shows that I liked, and it was almost like it was like a feeling of like care. And again, like this is not like a angry man zone, but I
understand. Yeah.
Just like it's like when people talk about like not wanting a patriarchal society anymore. It is like this idea of like people caring for each other and like everything had like such intention behind it.
Were there mostly European designers that were showing? Or?
There was a mix.
Just because
a lot of European designers.
Like Europe is in a much different situation than the U.S. Like I would say it's probably easier to run a business or start a business or
100%.
right. So you can still have that element of the avant-garde there
Yes.
less than you can in the US right now.
And I think that was a big part of it. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's like literally the effects of like,
inflation.
No, it's the effects of like living in like a country where like the government takes care of you.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. No. Right.
Where like
exactly.
the government gives you a stipend to make work. That doesn't happen here.
Right. That they are thriving on this. They're still like when New York was still well, I don't know if it was ever affordable, but there was a time where you could still like have a decent rent or you shared with enough people where you made. That's gone. And so I see the center of gravity moving, in design. I see Mexico City as a place that's like hot. Like, we've talked about like, oh, wow, we should spend time in Mexico City and maybe even try to make work there. And then you're talking about Copenhagen. It's like, I feel like it's because there's this ability for young people to still,
to be an artist.
So how do people in the US, New York, what would you say to them if they were like, how do I start a career here now?
Right. Well, and you don't have to be in New York. That's part of the great thing about the...
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the buyers are here.
The buyers are here, sure.
They are.
This is true.
And I think that is what keeps a lot of people at this center of gravity.
Yeah. And also New York is the greatest.
And of course, no, I love it. I mean, New York is, like I can't imagine living anywhere else. But in terms of like if I was a young designer, if I was Fernando back in 2014, I don't know that I would be able to do what I did,
But your old studio.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that that's still affordable? Because that was in like a crazy area that I've never been to
East
before
New
and have
York.
actually never been to since.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go back. Post-COVID, it got really bad. Like there was a moment, East New York was fine. It was like, and that was I had to go that far to be able to afford space.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, like ladies and gentlemen are even further out. They were, but you had to go, no, I don't think that's affordable anymore in a way. Like or the hustle that you have to put in to afford these massive studios and all that, that's different. Now I own the studio. I own my studio. It's different part of my life.
Right.
But
I think that's what's happened. Like a lot of people have moved upstate.
Right.
A lot of people.
In fact, Misha is there. He's very close to me. Katie Stout is up there. Yeah, there's a lot of designers up there.
People work. Red Hook has long been a haven for designers, but I have never inquired about the financials of that either.
But see, all of that is why like that 2010s era was so interesting because it was still affordable. There was a movement happening, a lot of designers popping up. So I think that's why it makes it such a special era.
Yeah.
I think it's going to go down as like an important part of American design history.
I think so, because it was also just like when American design like sort of like recaptured an identity that it had lost for a long time.
I don't know design history that well, but it feels like that was kind of
America thrived in the mid-century.
Right,
American design thrived in mid-century.
Yeah, I got you with that.
And then, there were ups and downs, and there was maybe like a little bit of a high point in the 90s. But yeah, the 2010s were...
Yeah, it was a special era.
A really special era.
You also talked about like the maddening short life cycle of design trends.
Mm-hmm.
What are those trends, and what do you when you mean short? Like, what does that mean? Like, what are these short design trends that you see happening or that are frustrating?
Well, furniture has started taking a lot of its cues from fashion. So a lot of it is like materials based or color based. So just saying like butter yellow is in, or like I do this newsletter now where I like love to sort of dissect these micro trends. And so I thought about doing one just on stainless steel lamps because like stainless steel in general is like having a huge moment. And I mean, stainless steel is like a little bit different because there is this also like sort of like revolution happening in welding. That's nice. But yeah, just like, so you have these trends.
Like micro trends or like these tiny little trends that pop up for months?
It depends. I mean, some have longevity and some don't. And sometimes that's because it wasn't really a trend.
Right.
It was just like something that people talked about. And then like there's just also this need to constantly be naming things now. Like that was a new one that I like almost like remember when it happened, where like we did Sight Unseen Offsite in 2015, and somebody from the New York Times like called me and wanted to know like what I was calling like the trend of furniture that was happening at Sight Unseen Offsite. And I was like, you know what? I'm really bad at naming things. And I think what they came up with was like warm minimalism, which like doesn't even mean anything really. But yeah, so like there's been like warm minimalism. There's been like neo-eclecticism. There's been avant basic, like there's like all these things, and none of them are like real. They're just fun to talk about and they're fun to propagate online. But when it's a material or a color-based thing, it is very real, where like people are like, oh, well, that's the thing that's selling. Maybe I'll do that too so that I can sell something. And my fear is just that people will make things for the market.
Yeah.
For the market, rather than making it based on like a real like authentic desire, or that it will actually last. Yeah.
I don't pay as close of attention. One thing I've been wondering, does the design world seem much larger now to you?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, how are you guys following these micro trends and all this stuff? Like how are you really keeping up with the with just that the quantity of stuff out there?
Right.
If that's sort of diluting the design world, or it's because, hard to find those real special voices out there amongst all of this, like just the sheer amount of design that's being made.
It is hard. It's both harder and easier. I mean, the amount of people that I follow on Instagram like feels untenable. And people love to like shit on Instagram and talk about how it's become like this morass. But like, I kind of still really love it and love it as a discovery tool. Like, I find so many people like just by following one person, and then they're in a show with another person. And then, and like, just like even in Copenhagen, I follow like 55 new people or something like that, maybe even more. And the problem with Instagram is it doesn't always show me those people.
Right. That's what I was going to say. You were following a lot of people, but you may not track them because the algorithm decides.
And it's become harder and harder to just be like, show me everything that posted in the last like day.
I know. I wish they would change that, where you could sort of decide what your algorithm does. Yeah. Because you want, especially for you as you're trying to really track, people, and you may have followed them, but like a year later, they're not on your feed anymore.
Right. If you like don't interact with them enough. So, and then, as much as I'm not into the idea of like gatekeeping at all. There are certain people that are like very reliable, sort of like arbiters and curators of design that, like Jacqueline Sullivan, any show she has, there will be like 1 to 2 people that I was maybe not familiar with or hadn't seen work for them, or she pushed them to do something in a new way. Same with Laura and Dave at The Future Perfect. There's a reason why these people are successful. They have very good eyes.
Oh yeah. Well, I know. I talk to Laura. They've gobbled up so many of the best designers. Just taking everyone into that. Right. Yeah. I know they plucked the talent early on, and I saw it kind of happening at this at Afternoon Light. There was a designer that I came up to, and I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic." And they were like, "Yeah, we're already talking to the Future Perfect." We're already and I was like, "Dang!"
Just the fact that they did the night light exhibition with Dud House.
Yes,
like there were so many where I was like, "Oh, this is a delight," and I never even knew this person existed before.
I know. I love Chris and what he's at. He came on this show as well, and I've always supported John L. Dudd. I think it's because it also reminded me of what I was trying to accomplish with In Good Company. But there's that spirit I think needs to remain, because I would like New York to feel like Copenhagen at some point again. I always know that this stuff is cyclical. Something's going to come back, right? But there needs to be some like structural changes for that energy to come back. And like one of the best avenues for these things is designers getting together and
producing their own exhibitions, which you did with Ink and Company, and which
Yes.
I almost consider Sight Unseen Offsite part of that, because we were just like such a part of the world. Like you really have to be in the world sometimes to find the best work, because you know who like the person who's like assisting.
That's right. That's right. And
who's like silently working on their own career, you know, like.
no, there's so many times I've gone to studios and there's some work in the in like a smaller studio in the back. And you're like, oh, who's that? And
Exactly.
oh yeah, that's my assistant or whatever. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. That's new. Yeah, that's how I love discovering stuff like that. Yeah.
It's hard to do when you just like are a person coming in from a little bit removed from the world that we inhabit. Yeah.
How do we talk a lot about collectible design on the show, on the pod, and I just would like to know how you think of and define collectible design. Why do you laugh?
Just because it's like just like collectible design has just become like this catch-all title that like is not even, it's just basically come to mean expensive design, I think, in some ways. It's not necessarily a collectible, because collectible design would, you know.
Yeah, why would you
imply that it was being collected in some way? Yeah. I don't know. Julia did write a very good newsletter, sort of like distilling this idea of like, well, what actually is collectible design? It's not just that you decided that like your coffee table was going to cost $24,000, even though you have no career,
no track record,
career to back you up.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't mean it's collectible design.
I think it goes back, like, I mean, what you said earlier about materials becoming more expensive, this and that. Maybe that's what's, you know, moving people to say, well, I can't really have a production studio. I can't really make these at scale. So I just naturally have to kind of label myself as.
Collectible design has become sort of a term that people use sort of like by necessity, where it costs them way more money to actually make the piece.
Right. So then
more money to, you know, bring the materials to wherever they are.
Yeah, but it's kind of doing a disservice to the thing. I think we need to find a new definition for these other studios. I think that's what Julie and I talk about often. We're like, well, there's got to be some other way to define this stuff, you know, because if everything becomes collectible, then we're just all like, well, whatever. Like you said, it's a catch-all for everything. It's like, well, yeah. I
guess, people can use whatever term they want.
You think so?
Like,
yeah?
At a
you
certain
don't think it
point.
confuses the message and like, so then artists that are in galleries, right?
Yeah.
How would you allocate them versus someone that is not gallery represented, that runs their own studio, but makes limited edition stuff? Like, how would you allocate this? Same.
Yeah.
So you'd put like
you don't need a gallery's imprimatur to be a desirable designer. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it seems like the same thing to me.
But there's a certain, you don't feel like there's a certain cap as being an independent, as with being with a gallery, in terms of like the audience that you can reach, the price points that you can reach, and the credibility that you could potentially get. You know what I mean? Then why do certain artists move towards the gallery model and some remain?
It's a lot of connections that you're not necessarily going to be able to make on your own. That's true. Like, is like somebody who's just making like high-end design out of their studio with like no representation going to have access to some of the top tier collectors and top tier interior designers.
Like, do you consider Lindsay Edelman a collectible design?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, also that has longevity too.
Who?
Like, because her designs have such longevity too.
Even though some of it's produced at, like the branches have been produced at scale, kind of, like.
You mean because the branches have been knocked off, or because the branches
I don't know.
They
do. I feel like I guess you're right. I've just seen them in so many interiors that I wonder, are those hers or are those not? But
right.
But
that's like dilution that
But like if you compare, and we've talked about him on the show before, but like Nacho Carbonell, right? Like that's very, like that's art lighting, that's versus a Lindsay that feels a little bit more. And you would put those people in the same kind of category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been trying to really uncover what collectible design means, because of this. Because right now I feel like just everything is turning into. I have a lot of young designers that tell me, "Yeah, I'm in collectible," and I'm kind of like, "Okay, what do you mean?"
Yeah,
by that,
it's funny. Like, I don't think about it that much. I'm going to be honest, because I don't necessarily.
But it's funny because people think sight unseen. Oh, you don't care?
I don't necessarily care, like.
How to make
about making those distinctions.
Gotcha.
Like, you're either doing good work or you're not, in my opinion. And you're either selling it or you're not. Right. And again, it's almost like the trends. Like, this is just something that somebody else ascribed to your work. The only thing that it does, like, that I do think about it is in relationship to, like, somebody sort of, like, feeling like, they're just going to slap some random price on because they see other people doing it. Right. And there isn't necessarily, like, the craftsmanship, the longevity behind it, like that kind of thing. That's, like, the only thing that kind of irritates me about it. But other than that, like, I'm like, just, you can call it whatever you feel like. We don't, like, it's kind of, like, when people started talking about design art, I was like, that's a dumb term that somebody made out. It's design art. Design art. That is a dumb term that some... probably journalist, made up, and I don't have to use it.
So you guys recently in September 2025 changed Sight Unseen a bit, essentially turning into a newsletter. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about why that is and kind of like, I mean, you guys have publicly said a lot about it, but I just wanted to kind of like bring it to this audience and say, like, what's going on?
Yeah. So Sight Unseen used to be just like a regular online design magazine. We used to publish a couple times a week. Then for a while we were publishing like as many as 6 times a week. And then it sort of went back. And so part of the decision to become a newsletter was logistical. Just like, as editor-in-chief, I was tired of waking up every day being like, do I need to put something on the site today?
Yeah.
Like, just like needing it to be a more regular cadence and like just like a little bit more haphazard, because we are still a very small team. It's essentially Monica and I with like a team of contributors that like occasionally write for us. So that was part of it. Part of it was this idea that like people aren't going to websites anymore. Like, no one's like, let me get on my computer in the morning and go to Sight Unseen and see what's new. People are just reading things in their inbox. So like people's behavioral patterns have changed a lot. And I think like both of us wanted a little bit more of an editorial challenge. Like the way we write in the newsletter is a little bit different. We had sort of like this sort of steady change over the years from like being extremely journalistic, being like, okay, well, this is a news story, to really putting ourselves into the narrative a lot, which both makes it easier to write when you're trying to produce a lot of content and is just like more fun, and people know us as personalities and people want to know like what we think about this in relationship to the weird vintage piece we saw at the flea market last week or something, like, like, so it was just like a way to be a little bit more structured, have a little bit more fun, and then also create a little bit of space for us to explore things on our own, because Monica has Petra, which is an artisanal hardware company, and I sort of felt this increasing need to start a newsletter of my own. Yeah.
Is that because you feel like, I want to talk about Counterspace. Do you feel that the design media ecosystem is starting to change with Substack? With like, I had David Michon on and he's great. And, Forescale is really interesting, I would say, read every week. Is that exciting?
Yes.
These changes?
Yes, very.
And so then how does this, like, so Sight Unseen felt like, okay, like I know what I'm going to get when I go to this site now that the ecosystem's kind of breaking up, it's like atomizing, it's like crazy. So how do we discover, we have to, basically we're following one editor, one writer, one thinker. What happens to the kind of landscape of design when that becomes the case?
It's a good question. You mean like what happens to the products themselves or what happens to the design media?
To the media, I think we love, as people, we love these one main source, we go to AD for certain, I know, but you know what I mean? And that's what Sight Unseen felt like.
That expression was just like, I don't want to just hear from one person.
Right.
Especially because like, what if you don't feel like that person or source is for you?
Right.
In a lot of ways, it feels like there was a real splintering of like the old guard, and sort of the ones that are left are the ones who do it very well.
You're talking about major magazines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I love all the editors at AD. I think they do an amazing job, actually. The only thing I don't like is obviously like the celebrity home tours, because I don't really care.
Yeah, but that's been its ecosystem.
But like, that's how they make money. So like, they should be doing that. And, I think it's really exciting to have, we're very into the idea of democratizing design.
Totally.
And this democratizes the voices that are able to be heard. Like,
right.
It's kind of like when we started Sight Unseen.
It just makes it like, I went through the top 100, which you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Wersler's number 1 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, so.
On Substack, you mean.
On Substack, yes.
Yes.
And so you kind of watch and you're like, okay, if I had to go through all of these and kind of figure out who I'm connecting with, the voice and all that, like, when you're in it like you are, I think you can parse through that a little bit easier. But as someone else that's kind of trying to figure out like who they connect with, how do they do that?
Well, you know what? I did it before I got on Substack myself. I kind of did the same. I had like the same journey with like fashion Substacks, where like I don't really like subscribe to Vogue but like right. I do pay attention. And I started like following like 1 or 2 fashion Substacks that just like somebody had recommended to me, or I'd heard about it on a podcast or something like that. And I really felt like some of the Substacks I was following like legitimately like changed the way I get dressed in the morning and like think about clothes.
Right.
And so for the longest time I was like, well, why aren't we doing that for design? And David does do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's just that you follow someone who you maybe know, or like somebody recommended it to me. Right. Like somebody recommended For Scale to me when I first found it. And then David eventually like reached out and was like, can we work together? You find one person, and then you find another person, and then that person links to another person. And you don't need to feel like the stress of like sort of like going through and being like, which one's the best? Because like it'll eventually find you, I think, if you're like a kind of like curious person who talks about the things that they consume and mm-hmm. Follows interesting people who have good ideas. I think that Substack has become like a really fun discovery platform, frankly. Like, and I think that there's it's wide open for design.
It is.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's interesting that also people can also start to make a living that way without having to rely on being a freelancer, which I've heard, freelancing is hard for writers. So I think that also creates an opportunity. No, I know. I'm watching the whole thing unfold and I'm kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. But, I'm looking through some of the Substacks and it's, I'm just like, okay, I don't know if I connect with this. I'm trying to find the people I connect with. And it's slow going, but a
lot of the design Substacks are like almost like old school shelter magazines, where it's like a little bit more focused on like product and interiors and stuff like that. So if you're like a person who like thinks about design in like almost like an intellectual sense, mm-hmm. there's maybe like a fewer.
Right.
But
they're out there.
They're out there. And like, I'm sure there's somebody who maybe hopefully will listen to this and be like, you know what? I have ideas too.
So tell me about Counterspace. And, it's fairly new mm-hmm. and it started in November, kind of right after, soon after you guys kind of turned Sight Unseen into a newsletter. Mm-hmm. Is this giving you some like new freedom that you like, to kind of explore not under the thesis of Sight Unseen? Is that... Or how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it's been interesting because like I sort of like struggled with like, okay, well, am I going to this design fair as an editor of Sight Unseen, or am I going as Counterspace? And,
Right.
and in some ways it doesn't matter. I'm just going, and I understand that everybody knows me as Sight Unseen, so that's fine with me. And that being the editor of Sight Unseen affords me privileges that like being a new Substacker wouldn't necessarily. But it's just been like very fun to kind of figure out what goes where. Like they're really different. Like Sight Unseen is more news based. It's a wider purview about like the design world. Counterspace is literally just me being like, I feel like I want to write about tureens. You know what I mean? Like, and then finding a bunch of examples that I like and going back through design history. And I have always felt like, a lot of Sight Unseen's mission and role is like as like an educator almost, like explaining to people who aren't necessarily in the design world, like what all this is. Right. And so Counterspace is like very much in that lineage, I feel like, being like, okay, well, maybe you don't know who this female silversmith who worked at Jorgensen is, but I'm going to talk about brooches, and I'm going to use that as a way to like also talk about this designer that like is maybe undersung. And I don't always do that. Sometimes it literally is just shopping, but it's kind of fun to think about it in that way.
Well, I have a soft spot in my heart for Sight Unseen, and I've always loved what you guys do. And, I feel like every time I tell the story about my career, I talk about that first show and how important it was for me. So I thank you for that. And
I want there to be like an oral history of like the Sight Unseen tentacles one day, because
we should make a documentary.
Like there are just like so many people that like got their start in those shows, and like a sort of community that grew up around it.
Slash Objects, who I bought her first piece. Ariel's at Sight Unseen, and I have this funny story about it because she said to me, I go, okay, how much for the drum? And she goes 6, and I thought, 6,000, right? I thought, and I go, 6,000. She goes, no, 600. And I said, oh. And she goes, wait, you would have paid 6,000 for it?
You're like, let's talk about your line sheet.
And it's just a funny thing that, then she ended up doing the TV show and stuff. We have this nice history, but it started there. And I just remember that so clearly. Yeah. And seeing a lot of my friends now that have super established studios, having come out of there, Chen and Kai, and who we've had on the pod, and Ely Parker, just so many.
Yeah.
Anna Carlin.
Harry Nureyev.
Crosby Studio. Exactly. So, I think you guys have done something incredible in archiving this time period. And so I thank you for that, and thanks for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
This was fun.
Really fun.
So if anyone doesn't know Sight Unseen, get out there and check it out, or sign up for the newsletter.
Please sign up for the newsletter.
Sign up for the newsletter and check out Counterspace, because it's number 71 right now.
Great.
That's good.
That's amazing.
I mean, dude, it's like, it's climbing up. So, all right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Design Discord. You know the routine. Subscribe, like, comment, send me an email. It's always great to hear from you guys. And by the way, when I go out into the world and I see you guys out there, thanks for coming up, supporting the pod and telling me that you love it. It really keeps me inspired to keep this thing going. So anyway, you know the routine. Let's do it. I love you guys. I'll see you somewhere on the other side. Bye-bye.